Hey guys, how is everybody doing? And welcome back to my Spider-Man review series. If you have not watched my review of the first Spider-Man movie, please do yourself a favor and go ahead and go watch that. And if you have not watched that and you only want to hear my thoughts on this movie, well, for the next couple of days, I will be reviewing the live-action Spider-Man movies, meaning I will be talking about Tobey Maguire's movies, Andrew Garfield's movies, and Tom Holland's movies. Excuse my throat. I don't know what's going on. I keep coughing up, coughing up mucus. But so for the next couple of days, I will be talking about their movies. I won't be talking about Into the Spider-Verse. I won't be talking about any of the Sony Marvel movies or whatever of the anti-hero shit, all leading up to the release of Spider-Man Brand New Day. Again, excuse my voice. I have a bit of a mucus shit going on, and it's very hard to talk. Probably shouldn't make a video knowing that's going to happen. Probably won't be a very enjoyable experience to hear me coughing a whole bunch, but you know what? We're just gonna deal with it. So, with that all out of the way, here are my thoughts on Spider-Man 2. But starting off with my positives on Spider-Man 2, and my first positive of the movie is I really like how this movie kind of fully dives into Peter trying to live two different lives. One as Peter Parker, getting around, having a job, living life, and trying to be a superhero and save the city all the time at any time that he's really able to, and moments where he has to drop everything that he's doing in his normal life and go out and be Spider-Man because people are in danger and need his help. I really, really like how this movie fully dives into that. You kind of get a little bit of like an idea of it in the first movie, but it never really goes fully into it at that point. Excuse me. It doesn't really fully go into that at that point. It just kind of goes fully just, I'm becoming Spider-Man and I'm like learning this as I'm going type of thing. But in this he knows he knows that he's Spider-Man, he knows his responsibility and he knows what he's capable of doing. And so he tries to balance out his life and trying to be both sides. And I really, really enjoy that. Now, I will be going into this a little bit more later on about how like when he starts to lose his powers and he kind of has to come up with how do I live both lives or whatever. But even when this movie does focus on that, and when he's trying to be Peter and Spider-Man, I've always really liked that. That's something I've always liked about the character and how, you know, in a way we can all relate to that where we try to balance out our lives, whether it's, us doing something, living a normal life or wanting to go out and do other stuff like hobbies, I guess, which I guess you could think of Spider-Man as a hobby, which if anything, it's more of a responsibility, I guess. But I really, really like when they do fully dive into it. Now, it kind of leans away from it towards the end where he loses his powers or whatever, but it still kind of focuses on this a little bit. But when the movie does fully focus on him trying to live both lives and trying to be Spider-Man and Peter, I really like that. And like, especially in the in the very opening of the movie, where he's delivering pizzas but he's late because he was trying to be Spider-Man to get there, but then shit happened of like those kids running out in the street or whatever, and that made him late. And so because the boss couldn't rely on him no more, so he had to fire him. And Peter's down on money. He can't pay his rent, he can't pay for really anything. He has a scooter as transportation, for fuck's sakes, and just a lot of other things where he says he doesn't have money to pay for the things that he needs or whatever. And then him as Spider-Man, where he realizes his responsibility. And hell, even with that, it kind of gets in the way of him possibly having a relationship with MJ, which they're still fucking teasing in this. Which, why the fuck are you saying that you want to be with Peter even though you're marrying this fucking astronaut motherfucker or whatever? Which, beyond me, I
Hey, Linda! You're a bitch!
guess. But even with that, it like gets in his way of having a job or getting a girlfriend with or getting in a relationship with with MJ or whatever. And hell, even kind of it kind of affects his relationship a little bit with Aunt May and a certain extent. But throughout this whole movie, I just love that balance of trying to live two different lives and trying to find a way to where you can live both. But the movie shows that you simply cannot do that. And it's hard not to talk about this movie without talking about its main antagonist and the main villain of the movie with Dr. Otto Octavius. Even when I was a kid, this was one of the villains that I just absolutely loved. Now, I love Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin, and he probably will always be my favorite Spider-Man villain, but Alfred, I forget his last name. We're just gonna call him Alfred. Alfred as Dr. Otto Octavius. He gives such a brilliant performance and such a good performance as Dr. Otto Octavius. He is one of my all-time favorite Spider-Man villains because of this movie, and him and Willem Dafoe as the main villains are always neck and neck for being my favorite because Willem Dafoe is great as Green Goblin, but I also love Alfred in the role of Otto Octavius because, you know, what I like about the approach in this one is how kind of sad this character is in a way where he simply wants to fulfill his dream with this science project that he's been working on pretty much his entire life. And he actually got the funds from it from Oscorp with Harry, and he finally gets the opportunity to show everyone what he's capable of doing, and kind of evolving science and all, and kind of using his intelligence for the good of mankind, as he talks about throughout the whole film. And then everything goes horribly wrong, and he miscalculated, but doesn't want to fully admit it at the very end of the movie, and it causes the death of his wife and nearly the death of himself, and basically killed his entire science project. It got cut from being funded by Oscorp, and hell, that even kind of fucked up Harry's life a little bit too. And then when he fully wants to recreate his science project, the arms are basically talking to him somehow, which I think that's just him losing his fucking mind. Let's be honest here. And I love how they added a lot of horror movie moments from him because Sam Raimi does return return to direct this movie. I'm really sorry about my throat. This is aggravating as fuck for me. And as Sam Raimi does return to direct this movie, and obviously the next one, which he directed this trilogy, as I talked about before. And when it comes to Sam Raimi, he's always been known for The Evil Dead. That's what basically started off his entire career, and not basically, it is what started off his entire career, what's basically made his entire career. And whenever he makes another movie, he always adds those Evil Dead moments. And the Evil Dead moments in this movie, they fucking show. Because the moment that really stood out to me was the moment of when, after the accident and he's in the hospital and they need to cut off his arms. I fucking love that entire hospital sequence of when the arms basically come up, basically end up having a mind of their own and knowing what they're doing, and they're attacking everyone in the hospital. And there's a lot of POV shots of the arms, which is taken straight out of the Evil Dead, and it's just fucking awesome. And this is fucking corny, and I don't really think they would have a mini chainsaw in a hospital, but the dude grabbing that mini chainsaw and trying to saw at the arm. I could not but just fucking throw my fist up in the air and go, fuck yeah, because it just instantly reminded me of the Evil Dead and Ash. Like, that was just awesome. And obviously, you also got, Bruce Campbell in another cameo. But besides the point, just that whole sequence alone from Dr. Otto Octavius is just so fucking good. And just throughout the whole movie, he's just so I wouldn't say he's overly menacing or pure evil necessarily, which he does have the moments of where he's basically pure evil and, just doing what he wants, nearly killing a bunch of people, flipping cars, nearly killing Harry, nearly killing Peter, and kidnapping MJ just to get what he wants. But he also has like his quirkiness moments and one-liners and just kind of having fun. Like when he takes Aunt May and he's like, oh, I'll give her back to you, and he drops her. He goes, oh, Butterfingers, and he's just and kind of messing around at moments, and kind of mostly like with Harry or whatever. Like, he has his moments of quirkiness that reminded me a lot of Spider-Man, or when they were fighting up the clock tower. It's like, let's talk, or
Where is she? Oh, she'll be just fine. Let's talk.
whatever. Like, there's moments where not only is he just, fucking terrifying as the villain and also just, really cool as the villain, but he's also just a fun, quirky villain that I really, really enjoy that they added. Now, I'm not overly familiar with the character outside of, this movie, the PS4 video game, and the Spectacular Spider-Man, so I don't really know if he has, like, just moments of quirkiness in the comics. I know he doesn't in the PS4 version, but I don't know if in the comics, if that's a thing that, that the character has. But if that's a thing that they added in this movie, I really like that, where it kind of creates a better dynamic between him and Spider-Man. But Otto Octavius, he's just an amazing villain throughout this whole movie, and arguably the best Spider-Man villain that we've gotten in live action, if you ask me, because he's just so cool. He's one that I always grew up with. I remember when I was younger, my dad um bought, and not my dad. No, I'm completely thinking about this wrong. You know those like oxygen tubes that old people usually wear when they can't breathe? My grandma, fucking, don't know why she would let me do this. I remember when I was younger, I took the big tube that she needed to basically hook it up so the air would blow through the tube and into her mask so she can breathe at night. I would unplug that tube, throw it around my neck, and wave it around and act like I was Doctor Octopus. Why would I do that? I was a fucking idiot when I was a kid, and I had fun. But I remember those distinct memories of that, and just thinking I was Otto Octavius because how much I loved this character in Spider-Man 2. Now, is that probably a stupid thing I did and probably shouldn't have stole my grandma's hose all the time? Yeah. Did young me care? No. Do I care now? Not really. Probably would still do it today. And I really enjoy how they decided to develop a lot more of the characters in this trilogy and a lot more, and kind of give them more of a character arc from the first one. And the main one for me is Harry. Harry in this movie has always been a huge standout to me because in the first film he's kind of just, Peter's friend, kind of just there, kind of shy and awkward, trying to be daddy's perfect son or whatever. That's kind of what his character was. And, in this film, he kind of is the same way, but at the same time, but what I really like about this one is that he becomes, the head of Oscorp, the head of funding, and, trying to put the Oscorp on the Oscorp, Oscorp on the map more and better than before, and like never dreamed of when his dad was running it or whatever. He kind of tries to follow in his father's footsteps and try to be better than him in some ways. And then when he becomes ruined or whatever, and then he goes back into his vengeful era of trying to hunt down Spider-Man and kill him or whatever. And that whole, you know, not dynamic, but the whole conflicts between him and Peter because he knows Peter is friends with Spider-Man. So he kind of has a little bit of resentment towards him because he thinks he killed his dad or whatever. I really enjoyed Harry throughout this whole movie. And then when he finds out that Peter is actually Spider-Man or whatever. And, to me, the way his character gets capped off, I will talk about that in Spider-Man 3. But I've always really enjoyed that in this film, and he's always just been a huge standout for me whenever I rewatch this film. And the other character that I'm glad that they go on and to develop more and kind of give more of an arc to, I guess, is Aunt May. Aunt May to me now, she kind of has a somewhat similar role, if not maybe a bit bigger role than she did in the first film, because in the first film she wasn't in the movie a whole lot, but she was in it enough. But in this one they seem to include her more. And what I really liked, and one of my favorite scenes of the movie is, they kind of develop her more to where she's losing her house. She doesn't have the money for it. And, at this point, it's been 2 years since Uncle Ben has died. And, that's really getting to her emotionally and mentally or whatever. So she doesn't really know what to do at this point. She's trying to get a loan out of the bank, but she can't, to where she's having trouble, kind of similar to what Peter's got going on. But what I really like about this movie is how they fully push her into this new like character and kind of shows more of Aunt May and kind of make you emotionally feel for her. And there's moments where she gives great word advice of like, I believe there's a hero in all of us. We all need Spider-Man or whatever. And one of my favorite moments in this entire trilogy, hell, in comic books and comic book movies in general, the scene where Peter fully admits to her that he's pretty much responsible for Uncle Ben's death. He lied about going to the library. He won a wrestling match that he probably shouldn't have been in. The guy wouldn't give him money. He let the guy steal the money, and he let him get away. And because of that, that ended up getting Uncle Ben killed. And that whole scene and just the face of confusion and sadness and disturbance, I guess I could say, the disturbed look on her face as she's looking at Peter as he's telling her all of this, and she just gets up and walks away, is one of the most heart aching and gut punching scenes that I have ever seen in a comic book film. And that's what I really love that they decided to do with Aunt May in this movie. It is such a huge gut punch just to see that. And, and just seeing the character development with those two characters and others alone, kind of with, even with MJ about her getting in the acting getting, I already talked about Peter of him trying to balance out his life. But just those two characters are the ones that really stand out to me when I mean how they kind of develop their characters more. And my last positive goes along with my first positive about how Peter tries to balance out his life. And what I really like about this movie, a lot of people seem not to like. There's some people out here that is out there that don't seem to enjoy this movie because of this, but I am not one of them. I'm one of the people that really enjoys this movie because of this, and that's the whole subplot about Peter losing his powers and his body like kind of giving up on him as Spider-Man because when I was talking about earlier, when he tries to balance out his life of being Peter Parker and Spider Man, but he doesn't know which one he wants to be more, and so he tries to be both, but being Spider Man gets in the way of being Peter, and being Peter kind of gets in the way of trying to save the world or whatever. Excuse me. And I've always loved the subplot of him not knowing what to choose and not knowing what to do because he wants to live a normal life, but he also wants to save the city all the time and use his powers for responsibility. Mentally, he cannot choose, but physically, his body chooses for him in a way to where he starts slowly throughout the whole movie. He loses his powers, whether that's where he can't shoot webs out of his hand anymore. He needs his glasses again. He can't climb up a wall or whatever. He doesn't have a spider sense. He is slowly losing his powers, and he just does not know what to do, and so his body chooses for him that you cannot be Spider-Man, and so he goes to be full on Peter Parker, which is something that I really enjoy throughout the whole movie. And when you see him being Peter and what his life is and what it can be, and there's great moments of where when he's trying to be Peter, he's trying to be fully Peter, but also somewhat of a hero at the same time. Like when he pretty much nearly sacrifices himself going into this burning building to save this little kid, and he saves her. And obviously he's not Spider-Man to where he's human and needs it, and he almost gets hurt doing it, and then he finds out that someone ended up accidentally dying on the fourth floor, and he had no idea about it. And the look on his face of sadness and distraught to where he kind of realizes that I can't be both. I need to either choose one or I need to choose the other. If I'm fully Peter, I need to stay fully Peter. If I want to be Spider Man, I need to find a way to balance out life. And I really, really love that throughout this whole movie. And it creates such a great character development for his character. And throughout this whole movie, it's just something I really, really enjoy. So, a lot of people don't seem to enjoy that. But I'm pretty sure, if I'm not wrong, this is a real story in one of the comic issues, if I'm not wrong. But I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't know. But that's always something I really enjoyed about this movie, and that's what made this movie so rewatchable for me as a kid. Not only did it have one of my favorite villains, but it also gave me some of my favorite stuff to see out of Spider-Man, and kind of push this character development. That's something I've always really enjoyed about this film, and it's perfectly shown, not only just performance-wise, but just facial expression-wise. It shows you the pain and the confusion that he goes through, and he just doesn't know what to do. But I don't have negatives for this film, but I do have one mixed aspect, and my one mixed aspect is that, you know, being Sam Raimi, this is kind of the point in time in his career where he kind of tried to inject a lot of humor and comedy into his films. Like, for instance, when I talked about Army of Darkness, when Evil Dead Burn was coming out, when I reviewed Army of Darkness, I talked about how that's my least favorite because of all the comedy. And this one kind of starts to lean towards more of that comedic effect where it kind of has a lot of slapstick humor, a lot of, stupid jokes, I guess I could say. However, there are moments where it does work and where I actually do laugh aloud. I'm like, okay, that's pretty funny. But I feel like there are moments where it kind of does it a little bit too much, especially in like the first 35, 40-ish minutes of the movie. That's where it really kind of leans towards that comedic effect a lot. And, I kind of, I don't really gravitate towards it a little bit. And plus, this is kind of at the point in time where before we got Spider-Man 3 and who we. But this is kind of the point in time where Sam Raimi was injecting a lot of humor into his films. So he's always been a fan of the Three Stooges. So he's always kind of included those in his movies lately, which it's kind of weird to see the guy that made The Evil Dead kind of try and have fun and inject humor when The Evil Dead is one of the most goriest movies you'll ever watch, I bet. But I don't know. This is the point in time where he tried to inject a lot of humor into his movies. Now, again, sometimes it does work, and I do laugh out loud. But there are moments where I think it's kind of forced. My favorite joke is the Rent one. Rent. That one always gets a laugh out of me. I won't lie on that one. But overall, guys, Spider-Man 2 is a near perfect sequel in my mind. It is one of the best comic book films ever. It is one of the best Spider-Man films, and hell, arguably, probably my favorite. It is just one of the most amazing comic book films and one of the best Spider-Man films I have ever watched. I fucking adore this movie through beginning to end, and you know, we'll always have these amazing Spider-Man films with Spider-Man No Way Home or Into the Spider-Verse or whatever. But to me, this has always been the standard. So, what do you guys think about Spider Man 2? Have you seen it? What do you think about it? Do you like this movie? Do you not like this movie? Do you prefer it over the first one? Is this actually one of your least favorite Spider Man movies? Let me know in the comments below and we shall talk about it. And if you like this video, like it. If you love to subscribe to the bell notification so you will get notified for all my latest videos and for the rest of my Spider Man review series. Thank you all so much for watching. And of course, until my next video, I'll see you all next time.